This particular slideshow has 2 chapters worth of material in it, so it is a little long, but I will try to talk super fast and only talk about the important things. So first we're going to talk about chapter 4, which is about sleep. So we're going to go over these things. All right, some sleep facts for you. Staying awake forever does not kill you. They actually have never recorded anyone who has died from a lack of sleep. Your body steps in and saves you, so you have these things called micro sleeps that last 3 to 15 seconds. And it is kind of like zoning out. A lot of people do it while they're driving, and a lot of people do it while they're in class. It's your brain's way of shutting down parts of itself to get the rest it needs while the rest of the brain is still awake and active. Sleep deprivation, if you're a mom, I know you know these. And if you are a dad, you should know these because your wife or girlfriend is probably going through it constantly. Sleep deprivation symptoms are irritability, mood swings, memory problems, concentration problems, poor decision making, vision issues, diminished motor skills, and medical issues like a decreased immune system function. You need sleep to prevent all of those problems. And when you rest, your body gets a chance to reset and rebuild for the next day. Sleep keeps you alert. Duh. And lack of it can cause problems with attention and focus. Learning and memory is aided by sleep. Sleep allows encoded material to stick. If you have a problem with the details, it might get worked out while you sleep, and then you'll wake up with the solution. Kind of, maybe. It never happens for me like that, but I hope you guys are luckier than that. Sleep helps your mood. You know you're cranky when you're tired, just like babies and toddlers and kids and teenagers and adults and older adults. Everybody's cranky when they're tired. And sleep is needed less as you age. Kind of. Again, I don't know that I agree with that, even though scientifically it's true. I feel like the older I get, the more sleep I need. But definitely when you're in your sweet spot of being in your 20s, you don't need as much sleep as you needed when you were 9. These are all sorts of things that affect the amount of sleep and quality of sleep. So your lifestyle, children, big time children, or dogs, stressors, sounds, the neighborhood you live in, things like that. All right, here we are, note cards. I do want to mention one thing about these note cards is that if you're taking them and studying them, you should be doing great on the quizzes and the homework. All right, micro sleep. And then on the back side, we are going to write a bulleted list. So microsleep is brief. It lasts seconds only. It's uncontrollable, and therefore it is very dangerous because you might be driving a car and you might be in the middle of something very critical and important, and the microsleep comes when it needs to come and not when you want it to. All right, the circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm, everybody has one. It tells you essentially when it's time to sleep and when you're more awake. We mess it up all the time. And by we, I mean humans. So how many of you have ever gone without sleep for a while, like stayed out too late, hanging out with your friends, and then you're like, oh, well, I'll just get more sleep tomorrow night. Sadly, it doesn't work that way. It has messed up your circadian rhythm, and it's really hard to get it back on track. The circadian rhythm is programmed by a suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain that kind of regulates everything. It tells the body when to rest and when to wake up. Your body is on a 24 to 25 hour cycle. We mess it up all the time, including our friend daylight savings, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. That is when the entire nation messes up the circadian rhythm of everyone. Melatonin is the hormone that naturally is released, and it helps us get to sleep. It's released when it is dark outside, naturally. And it is affected by kind of our modern technology. So any blue light, like from the television or your phones, it confuses the melatonin and it prevents the release of it, which is why we have sleep issues, and that's why they ask us not to be on screens as much towards the end of the night. All right, weekends and jet lag. They happen because we disrupt the natural circadian rhythm, and time change does it too. And we follow the schedule during the week and mess around on the weekends, throwing our body for a loop. Jet lag and time zones and exposure to light all mess up the body. Also, you guys probably know all about this, but work doesn't just happen during the day. So people that work at night and day shifts or varying shifts, they have a hard time with their body clock. Like nurses, for example. A lot of nurses do 28 hours on, 48 hours off. So that's 24 hours of no sleep and then a messed up body clock for 48 hours. All right, here is a little diagram of, or a visual aid, I guess, of circadian rhythm in humans. So you can see what happens at 6 p.m. You've got the highest blood pressure that you'll have of the day. At 7, you've got your highest body temperature. It starts to get dark at 9 o'clock p.m. The melatonin secretion starts. You hit your deepest sleep at 2 a.m. and by 4:30 a.m. it's the lowest body temperature that you'll hit that night. And then please notice the opposite happens at 6:45 a.m. Your sharpest blood pressure rise. So remember, at 6 p.m. you had your highest blood pressure, and then again at 6:45 you have it. These are our sleepy time hormones. So tryptophan is the ingredient found in turkey that makes you feel sleepy. Serotonin and melatonin. All right, time for an index card. Again, if it's an index card, chances are good you're going to see it on the test. Melatonin will be on the front side. And on the back side, a bulleted list of what melatonin does. It helps you get to sleep. It's released when it's dark, and it is very much affected by technology. All right, here we go. Here's a little question for you, just a review question. Melatonin helps us get to sleep and is associated with what are known as circadian rhythms. Is this true or false? It's true. I just got 100%. Woo! All right, sleep stages. So in the book, there's a picture of a lot of brain waves. And this is, I guess you should look at this while we're doing this slide, or at least keep in mind what it looks like. And then also in your supplemental videos, there is I think there are 2 that discuss the different stages of sleep and what those brain waves look like. So, stage 1 is light sleep lasting 1 to 7 minutes. And it says that you're easily awakened and you've got the hypnagogic jerk or hypnagogic jerk. Anyways, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but that's kind of that, oh my God, I'm falling, and then you startle yourself awake. Sometimes you don't even get the, oh my God, I'm falling. Sometimes it's just a big twitch and then you're awake. Stage 2, your respirations decrease. You kind of finally clearly fall asleep. The muscle tension relaxes. And your brain processes simple motor skills. Stage 3 is transitional stage between 2 and 4, which no duh, but it's got specific brain waves. It's got the delta waves. So I'm guessing that's why it had to have its own stage. And then stage 4 is REM sleep, which is the one that we've all heard about the most. That's our deepest sleep. And we have decreased respirations and pulse and temp and blood flow. But your eyes are constantly moving, hence the name REM stands for rapid eye movement. This is probably when you're doing your most dreaming. Your body conducts maintenance, so that's when it's kind of the systems are rebooting itself. So we're going to talk about REM sleep here. Once you get into a deep sleep, you cycle back up through stage 3 and stage 2 into REM sleep. So you kind of go back and forth between all of the stages at some point during the night. During the stage, you experience decreased respirations, your pulse is irregular, and the blood flow increases to your genitals. Your muscles are paralyzed, so that way you're not moving in your sleep, like sleepwalking, or if you are running in your dream, you're not running in your sleep. Brain waves change to seem as if you are almost awake. And that ties into the more active dreaming of things. Dreaming is more active and more memorable during these stages. People that are woken up from REM sleep remember their dreams better than from other stages. So dreams happen during all stages, but the ones during REM sleep are usually the ones that you remember the most. Some studies have cited that REM sleep is closely tied to memory performance, but others say it doesn't really make a difference, so who knows? Here's an interesting fact. The REM rebound is if you don't get enough REM sleep at night, your body makes up for it by having more REM stages the next night. Let's talk about sleep disorders. Those are fun. So I've put a couple of videos in our link sheet this week that has information about narcolepsy. There's someone that actually is recording herself falling asleep kind of unexpectedly because she suffers from narcolepsy. And then there's some interesting stuff in there about cataplexy as well. So a sleep disorder is a disturbance in your normal sleep patterns. So the most common one, and I'm pretty sure that we've all had it, and as a matter of fact, I think it's more common than they say. They say that as many as 50% of adults report having had it at some point, but I really think that's 100%. I have never met anyone who never had insomnia. But insomnia, in case you don't know, is the inability to fall asleep or stay asleep. It can be caused by several different factors or combinations of stress, loss, sleep schedule, pain, drugs, etc. All right, and then we're going to talk about narcolepsy, which is a pretty rare disorder. And basically, they fall asleep at the drop of a hat. 70% of the people that have narcolepsy also suffer from cataplexy. And that's the total paralysis. So that's kind of, it's not if you're sitting down, you're going to fall asleep. It's if you're walking, you're going to fall asleep and you're going to fall over. And this is due to the loss of neurons in the hypothalamus, which again is the regulation part of the brain. And here we have a lovely CPAP machine, or as my brother calls his, it's his Darth Vader mask. As a nurse, it's good to know the signs and symptoms and treatments of all of these sleep disorders. So this is the CPAP machine. And sleep apnea, of course, is when you stop breathing while you're sleeping. And I've heard a few different things. There's one school of thought that says all snoring is a sign of sleep apnea, but I believe that as long as you're still breathing, it's not sleep apnea. So it's usually loud snoring and snorting awake while sleeping. I think the biggest problem here is that people wake up so many times at night that it is almost like they didn't get to sleep at all. All right, my friends, index card time. If it's here, it's on a test or it's on homework. Sleep apnea. And we just learned about it, so I hope you remember. It's when you stop breathing while sleeping. And here's a quick little question for you, or really for me. Sleep apnea is when a person has difficulty breathing while they sleep and commonly have to elevate the head of the mattress or the bed to make it less difficult. Do you think this really helps people? No, it doesn't help. Wouldn't that be cool if that was the solution, though? All right. Let's talk some sleepwalking here. It's called somnambulism. Sleepwalking in non-REM stage 4 sleep. So 1 to 15% of people do it, and it's mostly more children than adults. All right, now we've got our dreaming page. I don't know how many of you are interested in meanings of dreams, but holy Moses, there are a lot of schools of thought about this. So common dream themes are sex, aggression, death. Others are influenced by culture, like we dream about what we know. So Freud had a big school of thought with this, and he thought dreams were a direct road to unconscious. So remember, he said that our reasoning brain was often conflicted with the unconscious. So he thought this was a way to get at things without your thinking getting in the way. So he thought this was like the truest form of who you were. So this was kind of his way of putting it, was manifest and latent dream content. And if you read the book, you know that manifest is what you recall when you wake up. And then latent content is kind of the symbolic interpretation of what it actually meant. So it's like the hidden meaning. So you've got your facts and your hidden facts, really. Not really sure that I want that to be true, just because I have some pretty messed up dreams. The continuity hypothesis. That is that we dream to cope with our daily issues. There's nothing symbolic in it. It's just your brain trying to work out the problems that you had in that day. Then we have the memory theory. So that is the brain consolidating the important info and dumping the trivial. I don't necessarily buy into this one because my head is always full of useless facts and trivia, and I don't see my brain getting rid of song lyrics or anything anytime soon. All right. Oh, look, this one's bolded. It might be important. The threat simulation theory of dreaming. The TST may be supported by a 2008 study showing that our default is bad dreams, not sweet dreams. That sucks because I have non-stop bad dreams, you guys. And then we've got the activation theory. And this is the most common theory that people think of when they talk about dreaming, that dreaming is just brains firing off random neurons, and it looks like you're awake, but you're not bringing in any new stimuli, so your brain just has what's inside to work with, and it's trying to make sense of things. So basically, activation theory just means that you're just randomly trying to figure stuff out in your brain. Hey, a handy dandy index card. And the threat simulation theory, or TST. On the backside, dreams help us prep for threatening situations. I really don't feel any more prepared as a person, however, for any sort of dangerous situations because of any dreams I've had. Okay, let's talk about something really fun. Hypnosis. Raise your hand if Zoolander is one of your favorite movies. In case you can't see, I'm raising my hand. And Zoolander is all about hypnosis. And at least that's the best part of the movie. I have also put a couple of pretty darn good videos, including one of The Simpsons, so you know it's accurate, of different fictional representations of hypnosis. So, brainwaves do change during the time that people undergo hypnosis. So as far as it being legit, they've got that kind of, I guess, research in their pocket. Not everyone is likely to become hypnotized. Some are more likely than others. So there are two different schools of thought, I guess, about this. There's heightened state of suggestibility. So you can only be hypnotized if you want to be hypnotized. You can never be hypnotized against your will. And then hypnotic susceptibility is how likely you are to be hypnotized. The biggest factor is honestly whether you want to be or not and what you want to be allowed to do. They can never hypnotize you to do something that is against your character or your will. All right. So here's some myths and truths. I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with the gold watch. I don't know if anybody has seen that in movies where they wave a gold watch in front of your face and all of a sudden you're like ready to do whatever. It's not magical. It has nothing to do with pretty geometric patterns. But it can cure addictions. Not all addictions, but it has been proven to help with nicotine addictions like smoking cessation and overeating and things like that. For the age regression, so that's like one of the clips of Homer Simpson going back in time to when he was a 12-year-old boy. You're not really, it's not really happening, basically. You're not really experiencing thing like you're a 12-year-old kid again. You're just following the suggestion that you're an adult acting like a kid. And yes, you can recover memories, but a lot of times you recover what's called false memories. And it's usually influenced by the people in the room or what has happened to you that day. So it's nothing that you can really depend on. And it's not permitted in court. You can't be hypnotized. Or your hypnosis sessions cannot be used in court with any sort of recovered memories because they are most likely false memories. All right. You really cannot be Superman with hypnosis. You can't lift a car off of somebody because they hypnotized you to think you're strong. You can only do what you would do if you were conscious, 100% conscious. The most common use for hypnosis is pain relief. So think of like your chronic pain sufferers. And as nurses, you're going to see this a lot. It's not a cure for pain, but instead they kind of trick your mind into thinking of peaceful and relaxing things when the pain hits. So it's helping your perception of the pain change. This might be helpful with regards to anxiety, but it only is helpful if you're highly susceptible to hypnosis. And I don't know about you, but I would really have to trust my hypnotist to help all the way with the anxiety instead of just like, oh, you're afraid to fly? Well, now you're not afraid to fly. I would really have to trust that somebody knows what they're doing. Let's talk about drugs. Nancy Reagan in the 80s said, just say no. So we're going to talk about psychoactive drugs, and I am guilty of one of the most popular psychoactive drugs. I consume it every single day, and if I don't, I have horrible withdrawal symptoms, and that drug is caffeine. I am a coffee lover. Tolerance is when you need more of something for the same effect. So, for example, when I first started drinking coffee, I was only drinking 1 shot of espresso a day. And then as the years went on, now I'm up to maybe 6 or 7 a day and multiple coffees during the same day as well, because my tolerance has definitely changed. And then here we've got margin of safety, it says. So that is the small difference in some drugs between a low dose and a deadly dose. So caffeine does not have this problem. But drugs like heroin and things like that, they definitely have a different margin of safety. So if your tolerance is up, then you're probably pretty darn close to a deadly dose. Dependence is your reliance on the effects of the drug. So that's basically when you're addicted. And then withdrawal are the symptoms that happen when the drug is not kept in your system. So common symptoms we know of withdrawal, which is very important for nurses to know. So think about, well, what they said in the book. There's that really great chart in the book. And it talks about what the drugs were maybe used for and what the good is that they get out of it, and then how long it takes and what the withdrawal symptoms are. So it's a lot of shaking and headaches and vomiting and nausea and memory issues, things like that. All right, some effects of the drugs are again on that chart. The depressants slow down your heart and your brain. The stimulants speed it up. Drug effects might be influenced by many things, such as psychological factors, genetic predispositions, things like that. A note card. I wonder if it's important. It is. Drug tolerance. On the back side is when you need more of something for the same effect. All right, stimulants. There's a little Breaking Bad episode for you right there. Wow. All right. So stimulants obviously speed up your normal brain activity. Oh, my BFF caffeine here. I have to let you know that coming up on the 29th of September is a very important day for caffeine. It's National Coffee Day, so I will be celebrating hardcore. Caffeine in low doses makes you alert, helps you focus, it improves your memory, it tastes amazing, you can react faster, everything is good and happy. In high doses, though, I'm sure, I don't know if any of you have ever had too much caffeine, but it increases your pulse, you get the shakes, you get stomach issues, I get really nauseous, mood changes for sure, and insomnia just because it is a stimulant. And because it is addictive, you can have withdrawals. They're not as severe as with harder drugs, but they are still there. Nicotine is another stimulant, and it's one of the most popular. And it's one of the leading causes of preventable death in the United States. It leads to cancers and COPD, things like that. A low dose can, just like coffee, improve your attention and your memory, but a high dose can lead to vomiting, diarrhea, sweating. It's also addictive, and you can suffer withdrawals with nicotine as well. Okay, this is one that I am not addicted to. Cocaine and crack. So cocaine can be ingested so many different ways. You can snort it, inject it, smoke it. So it can get into your bloodstream anywhere from super fast to almost super fast. It blocks dopamine reuptake protein. So the dopamine just builds up and it gives you those feel-good moments, which is why I assume people want to continue. It decreases the appetite. It increases your pulse and your blood pressure and alertness, but then it doesn't last very long, and there's a huge crash when it's gone. That's part of what makes it addictive, is that you are constantly trying to get back up to the, giant dopamine explosion that makes you feel amazing. But the crash always is going to come, and it makes you fall that much harder. Amphetamines, or our dear friend meth. High doses can lead to paranoia, insomnia, seizures, stroke, heart attack. So less intense high than cocaine, so you don't get that dopamine explosion of happiness, but it lasts longer. So the happy feelings are not super intense, but they last a lot longer. But there is again an equally bad crash when you're done. As good as it makes you feel twice as bad. Ecstasy. So ecstasy is usually found in pill form. It leaves a person with happy feelings and increased sensations, increased confidence, love feelings. It lasts about 3 to 6 hours per dose, but it has bad effects that include insomnia, teeth clenching, increased pulse and blood pressure, fatigue, blurred vision. I think the teeth clenching is a very interesting fact, because I know at a lot of like raves and stuff, if you were kicking it in the 90s, you would see a lot of ravers with pacifiers in their mouth, and I never understood why, but it is because of the teeth clenching. Index card of fate says stimulants. As I drink my third cup of coffee today. Stimulants speed up the brain. Now let's talk about depressants. So depressants inhibit or slow down your brain activity. Low doses can reduce anxiety, which is why they prescribe them sometimes. They can also maybe make you feel good. And high doses can lead to blackouts or comas or death. So alcohol hits the GABA, if you guys remember from chapter 2, the GABA, and reduces anxiety. It hits the cerebral cortex, which reduces inhibitions and affects memories. It hits the brainstem, which affects reflexes, reactions, motor skills. So, drunk people are not the most graceful. The effects of alcohol, depend on genetics, gender, tolerance, amounts consumed, etc. And addiction to it can be influenced by your culture, by your genetics, by the environment you grew up in, or the environment that you're currently in. Barbiturates and sedatives affect anxiety and sleep. So low doses slow down your nervous system, which can be relaxing, and high doses impair motor function, memory, and judgment. Paired with alcohol, that can equal death because you have then slowed yourself down so much that you can no longer function. Opiates, they used to be used to treat pain. They still are in the forms of morphine and codeine, but less so with opium and heroin, obviously. It depresses pain responses, increases pleasure, and they are highly addictive. Magic note card. Ooh, depressants. Backside says, slow brain down. All right, here's a little quiz question for you. Depressants speed up brain activity and stimulants slow down brain activity. Is this true or false, people? Of course it's false. It's the opposite, right? We just learned it. All right, hallucinogens. Hallucinogens are confusing for the body because they excite and inhibit brain activity at the same time. So that's the speed up, slow down at the same time. And that causes the perception to be distorted, rather. Marijuana is the most commonly used illicit drug. It's fairly mild and it's rarely deadly, and it also has medical uses for things like glaucoma or chemo drugs or chemo side effects rather, but it still affects learning, memory, motor functions, emotions, and appetite. It does not decrease appetite. People get the munchies, which means they're eating everything in front of them. They also get happy feelings and increased sensations. The addiction part is still not proven one way or the other, although my opinion is definitely already solidified in that one. PCP, don't hear about it as much anymore, but used to be kind of a big thing in the 70s and 80s. It can be taken in all ways, like cocaine can. A low dose will give you increased blood pressure, increased pulse, increased respirations, out-of-body sensations, numbness, sweating, flushing. That sounds awful. High doses will actually decrease your blood pressure, decrease your pulse, decrease respirations, gives you nausea, vomiting, drooling, blurred vision. It can be deadly and addictive. LSD. So this one's probably the most known hallucinogen, especially if you know anything about the Beatles or Charles Manson. Basically anything that happened in the 60s involved this. It lasts 6 to 12 hours, causes a quote-unquote trip where your senses are amplified. You get intense emotions and a lot of perceptual distortion, which kind of lends itself to good or bad trips, really. It can result in synesthesia, so that is when you can like feel and smell colors, and when numbers have colors associated with them. Really interesting. And it also leads to hallucinations, of course, and increased blood pressure, pulse, and decreased appetite. Bet you can't guess what this one's gonna be. Hallucinogens. The backside says they excite and inhibit the brain at the same time. This makes distortions occur. So that was the end of learning on chapter 4, and now we're going to jump right into chapter 6, which hopefully I will talk a lot faster and just depend on all those supplemental videos for you. We can learn from many different sources. Anything that comes in is experience. So we can learn in the classroom, in life, etc., with all sorts of different things that stick with us and change us, whether we mean for it to or not. We often hear about people with different learning styles. And as you'll recall, the first email I sent you guys was about whether you were visual, kinesthetic, or auditory learner. Not that they necessarily are founded in science, but as a teacher, I have seen the ways that different learning styles affect people. So there are 4 types of learning that are going to be covered in chapter 6. So we are learning about habituation, classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and social learning. So you're probably going to want to go back and review Little Albert and the Mouse, or the Rat story that I posted on, I believe, chapter 1 videos, because that really is going to come into play here. And then Pavlov's dogs also, big time, will be making an appearance. I have posted on YouTube all about Albert Bandura and his concepts. He did the little Bobo experiment, which if you read about it in your book, it was the one where adults would beat up this blow-up doll and then observe kids and see the kids kind of manifest the exact same behaviors that they saw the adult do because they automatically think it's okay. Anyways, he believed in the behaviorist approach. So remember who your behaviorists are. It's Skinner, Pavlov, Watson, and Bandura. Mediating processes occur between stimuli and responses, and behavior is learned from the environment through process of observational learning. Note card means it's on the test and or the homework. Social learning theory. Behavior is learned through observation of the environment. All right, classical conditioning. We're going to talk about Pavlov. And I also found some really great conditioning videos, both classical and operant, and I put them on your links list, so you could check those out. Pavlov was originally studying digestion, oddly enough, and studying salivation and its role in the digestion. So he measured how much a dog drooled when there was food presented. But he noticed dogs were drooling before the food even showed up. He thought dogs had learned cues from other stimuli. Something was preceding the food, and they knew if that thing showed up, then the food was coming. So he started pairing other stimuli with the food, like a buzzer. He found that dogs drooled in response to the buzzer, and after a while, they were drooling even if the dog or sorry, even if the food was present or not. So the elements of classical conditioning are unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, neutral stimulus, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response. Now, if I were you, I would write these down and remember what they mean. So here we've got an example of the food is the unconditioned stimulus, and it naturally leads to the unconditioned response. In this case, that is the salivation, and that happens before conditioning. They introduce a neutral stimulus, which is the bell, and the response to that is the neutral response, I guess, and that is no conditioned response. So then during conditioning, they put the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus, and their response is the unconditioned response. So therefore, after they're done conditioning, if the bell is present, the conditioned stimulus is present, now you've got a conditioned response. Here it is another way. And seriously, I would totally write all of these things down. All right, now we're going to talk about Watson. So Watson, we learned in chapter 1 that he did this study with little Albert and the rat. He thought that we started with tabula rasa. And if you're a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that was one of my favorite episodes. But basically it means blank slate. So you're learning all of your behaviors, including your emotions. So here we have the stimuli listed out for little Albert. So the neutral stimulus was the white rat. The unconditioned stimulus was the loud noise. The unconditioned response was fear. The conditioned stimulus was the white rat. And the conditioned response was fear. So, stimulus discrimination is when the conditioned response is only in response to the conditioned stimulus. So similar stimuli don't get the same response. We've created a very specific situation. So think about other animals besides a white rat that little Albert was afraid of. And this one's really interesting, taste aversion. So if the taste is associated with negative response, for example, a hangover, if you've discovered that drinking too much vodka makes you vomit every single time you have vodka, then you'll be less likely to drink vodka because you automatically associate it with vomit. Note card time. Little Albert, again. And here's a list. It's going to go through all of the stimuli and response. So unconditioned stimuli, loud noise, unconditioned response, fear, conditioned stimulus, rat, conditioned response, fear. Quick question, in the little Albert experiment, the loud noise was the unconditioned stimulus, true or false? Well, you guys just wrote that down. so you know it's true. Now, operant conditioning, which is different from classical conditioning. Operant conditioning is a type of learning where we learn from consequences. So I don't know what you know about Thorndike's cat box, but he put cats in a little puzzle box and they had to perform a certain action to get out. They either had to like move a latch or, you know, lift something or anyway. They kind of go through trial and error. They figured it out, and then they begin to repeat the action more readily. So think of this as dog training, which I do because I have 4 untrained dogs. But basically, there's a behavior that you want them to exhibit, like sit, and you can't just teach them how to sit from nothing. You have to let them kind of do random behavior until they get close to a sit. And you have to treat them with all the different random behaviors that are getting closer to what you want. And then eventually they sit, they get the jackpot treats, and then they kind of automatically learn how to keep getting those jackpot treats. And that's from, you know, the behavior of sitting. Whew, that's a lot to say. So basically, the law of effect, behaviors with positive consequences are repeated. So the positive consequence would be dog treats, right? If they sit, they get a treat. Negative consequences are avoided. So if I yelled at them anytime they barked, which is all the time, then maybe they wouldn't bark. No, that doesn't work. Anyway, then we've got our good friend B.F. Skinner, who is not the Skinner from The Simpsons, if you recall, but he is the Skinner with the rat box and the rat experience. So he did the experiment with the rats, and they had to push a lever for food and kind of train them using electricity and things like that. Not good to be an animal in those days. We've got acquisition and extinction, and this is just like classical conditioning. The loss of acquisition is due to no more reinforcement. Sorry, that's the loss of action is due to no more reinforcement. So if they stop trying to treat or sit, then they don't get any more treats. And then extinction is when you take that away. So if they no longer get a treat every single time they sit, they're going to be less likely to sit and try that behavior. All right, so reinforcement means, and this is tricky here for me, it means that you want the behavior repeated. So basically, the response is strengthened when it's rewarded. So reinforcement, good. No matter if it's positive or negative reinforcement, it's good. So positive means you're giving them something they want, and negative reinforcement means you're taking away something horrible, so something unpleasant. For example, little Albert, afraid of the loud noise, so negative reinforcement means you're taking away that loud noise. And then we have punishment. So punishment means that you want the behavior to stop. Positive means you're giving them something they don't want. So think about that. You're adding something unpleasant, like the loud noise. And then negative punishment means you're taking away something pleasant. So here we have the little graph. Remember, Reinforcement, good. Punishment, bad. So reinforcement, even negative reinforcement is good because you are removing something that is bad from that person or from that experiment. So, for example, studying to avoid getting a bad grade is you're negative reinforcing the fact that you are distracted. So you're taking away all your distractions in order to study. And now I have put a video up that explains the difference between the two conditioning types as well. Lots of videos this week, but they're good. All right. We're almost done, I swear. It's already been an hour. Positive reinforcement means you're adding a positive stimulus to make a behavior continue. So you give the dog a treat for sitting, or you give a toddler a cookie for pooping. If you're into potty training, my son had to have Matchbox cars every single time. All right, another one. I bet you can't guess. Positive punishment. Positive punishment means you're adding a negative stimulus to stop a behavior. For example, spanking a child for misbehaving. This is absolutely no statement on spanking or on cursing or values at all, but it's just an example of a negative stimulus that you are bringing to stop a behavior. All right, in operant conditioning, there are rewards and punishments. Is this true or false? It's obviously true. Oh, we did it. We made it. Please, please watch the videos. And if you have to, even if you've already seen that episode of The Simpsons, I swear all of these videos have a point that will help you understand what, I guess, what's going on in the chapters. So watch the crash course videos. Those are the most important. And then, of course, have fun with the rest of them.